Thank you, Chingui. And now we'll have Ross introduce our final speaker.
All right. Last but not least, folks, first off, just thank you to our speakers tonight. So great. And thank you also to our yarn organizers, right? Catherine, Aaron, James, Lisa. Yeah. So look, I'm thrilled to be here. I'm also thrilled for all of you to meet my friend, Dan Zeno. I think meet is probably the right word for what you all are about to experience tonight. As he'll get to in a minute, Dan was here before COVID in our MBA class, and then left for a few years and is now returned to Sloan, so reintegrating into our community here. I know he's super excited to meet you all and reintegrate here. In the spirit of meeting Dan, I thought I'd give a little advice. I go back a few years with Dan, and I have 3 questions you all can ask Dan. Questions you might ask him in the hallway, in the cafe, wherever you find him. Call them icebreakers. So question number 1, what is Dan's favorite burger? The dude is not messing around when it comes to burgers. Literally before school, he started a vegan burger joint in Jersey, ran the business. Think Sweetgreen meets Five Guys. He's not messing around with burgers. I dare you to ask him about his favorite burger. Icebreaker number 2, what is Dan performing at the Rolling Sloan's concert this May 4th? Put it in your calendars. If we're lucky, we're going to get a little taste tonight of his musical talent, but really ask him what he's performing at that concert. And then finally, icebreaker number 3, we're at MIT. Ask Dan what his favorite math equation is. If you do, I promise you, you will learn a lot about the size of this man's heart, about his resilience, and about his own mission in life. So we got burgers, we got Rolling Sloans, we got math equations. You have a lot to talk to him about, and even more after he gets on stage here. But first, please give it up for my friend and your classmate, Dan Zeno.
Testing. Let's see. Can you hear me? Good? All right. Appreciate that, Ross. I just got back to campus about a month ago, and I almost cried when I saw Ross. He's like he's my only connection to when I was last here at Sloan. And so it's just great to be back. It's great to be in front of you. It's a privilege to speak at the Yarn today, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell my story. So I'm Dan Zeno. I'm actually MIT MBA class of 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024. And I want to tell you about the last 6 years of my life. But first, I just want to give you a brief background and some context. I was born in San Antonio, Texas, to a Black American father who was enlisted in the Army, and a Puerto Rican mother who was a nurse. And where we grew up in Texas, it didn't matter your political party, whether you're Republican or Democrat, everyone was very patriotic, everyone was very Christian, and everyone was very pro-military. Everyone in my family has served in the military, and so as soon as I finished college, I commissioned into the Air Force in 2013. I served for a little bit in Japan, came back to Jersey, which brings us to the start of this story in 2017 when I was deciding to get out of the military and pursue an MBA. At the time, I was on assignment in Niger. Niamey's the capital of Niger, and I was out there, and I was facilitating some training for the Nigerian aircraft maintainers and engineers, and I was there with a lot of contractors, and the point of the training was basically to make sure that the maintainers there were ready to take on a C-130 that we were about to sell them. So we'd already sold them a C-130, and they crashed it, and they still owed us money on it, and we're selling them another one. And so I was part of the team to help prepare them to not crash the next plane. And so Through that process, I was kind of becoming a little bit disillusioned with why I joined the military in the first place. I very much drank the Kool-Aid during my training. I was all about our core values were integrity first, service before self, excellence in all we do. And Trump had just recently got elected, and I'm not going to get too political, but every building that you walk in, you see the chain of command. So that includes the president and all the people that they pick to, run the military. And so I disagreed with his behavior, to say the least, and I was starting to see firsthand kind of what the military-industrial complex looks like in real time. And I just started to feel a little bit uncomfortable with what I was doing, and I felt like I was missing a big understanding of how the world worked. I was very much used to being at the tip of the spear, but I realized money controlled that spear, and I didn't understand money that well. I knew logistics, I knew operations, I knew government, but I didn't know business. And so I decided to get out so I can learn business, so I could better understand the world and find my place in it. So moving forward to 2018, I had applied to Sloan. I really only wanted to go to Sloan. It kind of met all the criteria that I was looking for in an academic experience, and I was on the wait list. And so I didn't know if I was going to get into Sloan. And so I said, I'm going to either learn business the formal way, or I'm going to learn business from the streets. But either way, I'm going to learn business, And so I opened a restaurant. I said, why not? I had a good idea, I thought, and I don't recommend a restaurant as your first business. I really don't. But I just did it. I jumped in. I got it. It was purely debt funded. I strung together some loans and credit cards, and I signed a lease. A week later, Sloan calls me, and they make me a really nice scholarship offer, and I couldn't refuse it. So I said, I'm going to do both. And that's what I did. And so I start my weeks, the core semester, what my week would look like was Monday through Thursday, I'm taking classes. And come Thursday night, I'm on the Amtrak. Back to Jersey, I get off at Metro Park, take a local train to New Brunswick. That's where my restaurant was. It was right off of Rutgers campus, if you're familiar with the area. And so I was busy, but this is what I wanted. I wanted to kind of drink from the fire hose. That's how I've always learned things. And so I'm learning from doing, and I'm learning in the classroom. And then something strange happened. There was this cough going around our class. And back then, nobody wore masks. Masks weren't a thing in 2018. And so these scoundrels in class are just coughing out into the air. Just like free coughs. And everybody got sick. But nobody wanted to kind of miss those early classes because they take attendance in every class. So they just came to class sick and got everybody else sick, including me. And I'm still pissed off about that. And so, but something weird happened when I got the cough. I started to get very sore. And so I used to do these runs every morning. I lived in Central, and I shared a home with several of our classmates. And I love that place. I lived off of Auburn Street, but I used to run in the back streets of Central. And I went to go tie my shoes one morning, and I couldn't reach my shoes. And my hands started shaking when I was tying my shoes. I said, that's not right, because I haven't worked out that heavy. I shouldn't be this sore. There's no reason for me to be feeling like this. So I went to urgent care, and they told me I had walking pneumonia and some fluid in my lungs. They gave me antibiotics, sent me home, and said the soreness was tied to the virus that I had, and the soreness should go away. So I naively trust the doctors, and I continue on my way. Soreness is getting worse. I'm getting a little worried, but I follow up with the doctors around November of my core semester, and they still tell me, give it a little bit more time, the soreness should go away. Okay, great. I don't have time to be sick anyways. And so I pushed through finals, And I got to book it back to New Jersey because the restaurant still wasn't open, and we were way behind on schedule. I don't know if anybody's worked with like permit departments in these blue cities, but everything is slow and inefficient. So I had to go back and really like get on their ass, because I had a lot of money tied up, and we were building a hood and all these kind of things. And so got the permits approved. We were doing a soft opening, and New Year's Eve, the day before 2019, I woke up and I couldn't feel my right leg. I lost all feeling in my right leg. I turn to my wife, wake her up, say, Kayla, I can't feel my leg. I'm sweating. I'm in a lot of pain. So it's like 4 a.m. She puts her fingernail across my leg. See, can you feel that? No, I can't feel it. We go and get a knife, start poking into my leg to see if I could feel it. Nothing. I lost all feeling. I could walk, but it's just numbness. And so we went to the emergency room. They checked for blood clots. No blood clots. 2 days later, I go see a rheumatologist. He tells me he thinks, without any diagnostic tools, there's a lot of thinking doctors. He thinks that it's reactive arthritis. So, and it should, like the other doctors say, it should go away. Sent me home with 20 milligrams of prednisone and tells me start wearing compression socks because I'm starting to get edema in my legs and my ankles are like this big. So here I am, like an old person, putting on compression socks, taking steroids, but still, busting my ass in the restaurant, trying to get it open. Grand opening went great. We opened January 18th. We sold $4,000 worth of plant-based burgers in a 1,000 square foot space. So, it was popping in there. And we were really connected with the community. We had some music events, spoken word. It just felt really good to get that open. The team was very enthusiastic. And so to have the food be welcomed by the community like that was really a huge win for us. I returned to school the following semester, and I lost 20 pounds between semester 1 and semester 2. So when I came back, people were, I looked pretty emaciated. People didn't recognize me initially, but I was happy, because I got the restaurant open. But things really went downhill the second semester because I still didn't know what I really had, and I felt like this reactive arthritis didn't really make sense because I was getting worse, and the steroids weren't helping that much, but they were helping me walk a little bit, but it was just a minor improvement. And so I started seeing a lot of neurologists, different rheumatologists at MGH, Mount Auburn, immunologists, hematologists, infectious disease doctors, nothing. This leads up to spring break, and I'm on an ops lab project with Ross, and we're going to Blue Origin. We're doing this whole project for Jeffy B, and he didn't know how much his orbital launch rockets cost, so he asked the kids from MIT to go do a should cost model on it. So that's what we're doing. It's just free labor, and it was interesting or whatever. And but I remember Ross helping me put on my shoes in the morning. I was having a hard time getting dressed, so I was really deteriorating quickly. After that, I went down to the Bay Area because I had some advisors through the Sandbox program, 2 VCs and then 1 former entrepreneur. They were all from the Bay Area, but they assisted in the Sandbox program. And so, Sandbox was really digging my restaurant, and they gave me some money. And so the advisors were guiding me through setting up a seed round. And so they introduced me to a law firm in the Bay Area, and that law firm was kind of vetting my company, and we were going through the deck and making upgrades to the deck so we could start a seed round. And they were going to introduce me to all the VCs in there, that they know around there. And so they were talking about, we're going to sell 30% of the company, $10 million valuation, we're going to raise $3 million. That money didn't even kind of make sense to me at that point in time. So I'm just ecstatic that they would think so highly of such a young business. And unfortunately, at the end of that meeting, I could barely get up. And I was shaking when I was trying to get up. and they needed to help me get up. And I think that sent red flags to them that maybe we should slow down the deal because I was very sick, and we had to, because I got hospitalized a week later. I didn't go back to Sloan after that. And so I got partial credit for the semester. It wasn't a full medical withdrawal, but I got probably 50-60% of the credits that I should have gotten in the second semester. Moving forward to that summer, I got sent to a hospital in Pittsburgh. It houses the Autoimmune Institute of America. And so that's located in West Penn, and it's the first autoimmune institute. So they have a lot of specialties located in one place, and they do a lot of research there, specifically on autoimmune disorders and rare autoimmune disorders. So after about a week of workups, biopsy, looking through my files, finally they were able to find an answer. And my condition is called eosinophilic fasciitis. And that's a bit of a mouthful. It's a very rare condition. So about 300 cases ever in history. So there's been over 100 billion humans that have walked the earth, roughly estimated. Only 300 have been diagnosed with this condition. So that's about as many people that could fit in this room. And so that's why they were having a hard time identifying what I had, because none of the doctors had ever seen it before. So it wasn't in them to even look for something like this. So a quick description of this disease. It's eosinophilic fasciitis. So if you break it down, eosinophils, that's a type of white blood cell. And so it's usually a white blood cell that's triggered during an allergic reaction. And fasciitis is the inflammation of the fascia. So an autoimmune disorder, your immune system attacks something. In this case, it's the eosinophils, that part of my immune system that was attacking my fascia. And fascia is connective tissue. It surrounds everything in your body, your muscles, your bones, your nerves, every fiber. Fascia is like your stuffing. You wouldn't have shape without fascia. And so it's like a full system meltdown because my body is aggressively attacking every bit of my fascia. And that starts off with inflammation, and then it leads to like scarring and calcification, especially around the joints. And everything hurts. And for me, it felt like something was always crawling and moving under my skin. And so I was always being reshaped every day. And through this reshaping process, I would have these spasms that would sometimes lead to full body seizures. So these are like uncontrollable contortions, like my hand would roll over or my arm or something like that. And throughout these contortions, my body started to slowly change and constrict as well. And it's just incredible amounts of pain and agony and discomfort. And there's no real way to turn it off. And the only way the doctors understand how to treat this condition is to turn off your immune system. And so that's what they did. They gave me prednisone, 60 milligrams. The dangerous dose of prednisone is 20 milligrams, so they gave me 60. And they also gave me immune suppressing medication that is given to transplant patients. And so you don't want your immune system to attack a foreign transplant, so they turn off your immune system for that too. So I was stacking a lot of these immune suppressants and just trying to survive the flare-up. Average flare-up is about 3 to 5 years, so I was just in the start of my journey of trying to minimize the damage of the flare-up. And so I go back to New Brunswick, and my wife has taken a bigger role in the restaurant, and I'm trying to stay out of like the physical labor of a restaurant and just be in more the strategic space and try to see if I can get another seed round going, if I can have the credibility to put on a face to raise money and talk to these investors without looking too sick. And I just couldn't. Our restaurant continued to go all the way up until COVID kicked off in 2020. And all of our employees started to get sick. And we didn't know what it was. It was like in the very early days, January 2020, February 2020. And then once they said there's a pandemic happening, according to our local ordinance, we had to shut down the restaurant. So that's what we did. We shut down the restaurant, and at that point, I was so sick that I felt like maybe there's just more important things in life right now that we need to take care of. And so we went back to Houston. That's where my wife is from and my in-laws are from. And we had to live with my mother-in-law for a little bit, which I don't recommend. And then, so I walk into this house. I'm really barely walking. My wife is helping me with a lot of my day-to-day activities, like, getting dressed, things like that. And I spot this little creature out the corner of my eye. And she's kind of running around, zooming around the house. She's 18 months. She doesn't talk. She just grunts. And she has a pasty in her mouth. And if you know what a mean mug is, that's all she wears. She doesn't really smile too much. She's like a wild animal. So this person, her name is Zoe, and she is my niece through marriage. At the time, that was like her technically she was my niece. So she's the biological daughter of my sister-in-law. She was taken away via CPS from my sister-in-law at about 3 months the first time, and then several more times before it became permanent. My sister-in-law has substance abuse issues. The fentanyl epidemic is really bad in Houston, and so she got caught up in that. And the biological father was in military prison in Leavenworth, and he had nothing to do with her life either. And so Zoe was in danger of being put in the foster care system, which in Texas is a really poor system. And but she was being passed around different family members up until that point, and my mother-in-law just knew that she couldn't raise her. And so this baby was kind of looking up at us, and of course we were loving on her, but she just kind of adopted us, at that moment. And my wife, she has a very kind of loving, genuine spirit. And so, of course, she was just really loving on this baby. And I was kind of looking at the baby sideways because I didn't really have time for that. But she had time for me. And at that point, I was kind of like, my contractures were coming in. I don't know if you can probably tell, but I can't close my hand and make a fist, and I can't open it past here. So limited mobility here. My arm doesn't straighten out; stops at about 140. And my legs stop at about 90. So pretty limited, but she made me work. She made me get up and stretch and chase her around and play with her and pick her up, and that was my physical therapy to keep as much mobility as I could. We used to play this monster game all the time, which was perfect because I was really looking like a monster at that point. And she loved monsters. And I think that's probably why we connected so much over that monster game. And we really developed a deep bond. She couldn't talk when we got her. And I needed somebody to talk to because I needed therapy bad. And so she became my therapist, and in exchange for listening to me, I taught her how to talk. So she knows all my darkest secrets. Like, but I don't think she's gonna tell. But so one of the things that we really bonded over was music, because I told you about the prednisone that I was taking. One thing about the prednisone, it makes you crazy. Some of the side effects, it messes with your adrenal glands. And so my hormones and everything were always kind of fluctuating. And one of the side effects of that, such prolonged high doses, can be psychosis. And so it's really hard to stay grounded to reality when you're on this large doses for a long amount of time. And so one way I stayed grounded was I would keep music in my ear. And I started listening to different classical music. I don't know if anybody knows who Philip Glass is, but I just started to get some weird musical taste, and it started generating some creativity. And I would have these dance parties with Zoe because she just loved the party. I don't know. We were locked down, and so I liked to, play my music with the bass hitting heavy, and she liked that too. So we got in a little creative flow, and I started writing music. And I reached out to a music producer and a sound engineer from Rice University, and I ended up recording an entire album of 18 songs. Some of them for Zoe, some of them for myself. Zoe knows all my songs. She's my biggest fan, except for the explicit ones. I don't. But other than that, I mean, she knows the lyrics at this point. And so that moment in my life, that was 2020, leading up to 2021. We had gotten our own apartment and her own room, and we had full custody of her by that point in time, and the adoption was in work. And that moment in time was very special to me because I had never suffered like that before. I was just in deep, unimaginable pain. I didn't even know that pain levels could reach this high. And despite the amount of suffering, I just felt so much joy being able to see this child grow and evolve right in front of me. And she really gave me a reason to want to continue to suffer, because it was worth it. It was worth it if I can continue to be involved in her life in any type of way. It was worth it. But it doesn't mean I wanted to suffer. I wanted to come out of it. And so we were in discussions about, should I just apply for a disability and just be disabled? Do I accept this disability? Am I disabled? Do I call myself disabled? I don't know. Till this day, I still don't know. But I didn't want that. I didn't want to retire in my early 30s and go on disability. And I wasn't really getting good care from the VA, and so I didn't really trust their process too much. And so in 2021, March, I get a phone call from the CEO of a company called DatChat. Now, DatChat is a company that I was introduced to when I was at Seedburger from New Brunswick. And so if you've been to New Brunswick, it's kind of like a big, small town. And so it's really compact, and all the entrepreneurs, they know each other. And so I was helping their company raise money through a Reggae Plus. And so that was kind of a side gig I had. I was doing some advising, and I was working with their CTO on product changes in their designer. So I was kind of just doing this as a side gig, and they had raised enough money they wanted to go straight from a Reggae Plus to a public offering because they had a relationship with an investment bank called E.F. Hutton. And so I was like, okay, this is my way back in the game. I don't know if I'm stable enough to do this, but I just have to try. I have to try. I want to work again. I want to be part of building something again. I still had that entrepreneurial itch. And I thought this was my onboarding into being a tech entrepreneur because, like I said, that restaurant business, it's not where it's at. And so I need something with some bigger margins. And so he brings me on as a full-time COO of DatChat, and I got to go back to New Jersey. I was there away from my family for 5 months, staying in the Hyatt, just working on the public offering. And so just doing the heavy lifting for the public offering. We went public August 13th, which was Friday the 13th. Not good. And that was in August of 2021. And that's when kind of the same feeling I got in the military where things just didn't feel right. Things weren't sitting right with me. That's what started happening at DatChat when I was a COO there. It was the meme stock craze. All of these, Wall Street bets was going crazy. GameStop was shooting up. And we were kind of getting caught up in that because we're a speculative stock, small cap, pre-revenue. We had just raised $25 million, but we don't really have a business, And so we had a small float, and our stock was getting pumped. And our CEO said, let's make it a meme stock. And he went all in with this meme stock identity. And I just really didn't see myself being the COO of like meme stock. It just didn't make sense to me. I was hiring engineers to build a product, and I felt like they were being misled, and I started to feel uncomfortable. And so I can go really deep into that on the side if you want, but we had to break up. And so I got a severance out of that chat. I didn't get the windfall that I had hoped for through all my work, raising money for them, but the severance was enough to just give me time to heal. And so 2022, I was able to fully wean myself off of all the medications, which can be very dangerous. If you drop your medications too quick, you can end up hospitalized. And so I was weaning myself off, and I was doing a lot of physical therapy and just trying to see what I want to do next. And come around August, September, I talked to my wife. I said, you know what? I really would love to finish up at Sloan. I just feel like I have some unfinished business there. I want to go back. I want to finish it. I worked really hard to get in that program. I learned a lot from that program. I made amazing relationships. I would love to go back. And so she agreed, and she signed off. And I called Sheila Cannell. She's one of the advisors here at Sloan, and she was amazing in helping me come back. I was afraid that I was going to have to reapply. Because there's that 5-year rule, but when you're on a medical leave, they pause it. So they let me come back. I have about 96 credits left. I'm here. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. I'm officially targeted to graduate in February of 24, but they offered me to stay an extra semester if I want, and so I'll probably walk with the class of 24 here. But it's just a tremendous opportunity to be back. One of the main reasons I did this is because it's so exhausting telling this story over and over again. So at the Yarn, I can catch a lot of people at once. One more thing I did want to mention. So my name is Dan Zeno, but most people in Jersey just started calling me Zeno. And that kind of works for me. One, because I have a military background, but two, it's like, if you say, hey, Zeno, like, I'll know you're talking to me. But if you say, hey, Dan, you could be talking to a lot of people. So, prefer Zeno, but you guys can call me Dan if you want. And one more thing. I am releasing an LP in the coming month. In March, I'm going to release part of the music or a few of the tracks that I put together, and I'm going to do a little preview tonight. This song is called Pokey, and so when I was writing this song, it was more for Zoe to like have a cool version of the Hokey Pokey. I'm still working on like the choreography, but this is the song, and if you see, Zoe will be flying in next week. I haven't figured out childcare for her, so I'll probably have to bring her to a couple classes, so feel free to say hi to us. She's very interactive, you know. I walk her around like my pet, you know, and you guys can interact with her too. And you can see what I mean. She's crazy. But that's it, and thank you so much, everybody. I look forward to meeting as many of you as possible. Thank you for your time tonight.
All right, and with that, we'll play the song.
The very best dance song you got. Can you do that for me? Can you play the very best?
All right, thank you, everyone. That's our yarn.
In these waters, better test it first. Sit right when you're craving to obey your thirst. Just a bit discomfort, well, it could be worse. Blowing too much air, make your bubble burst. Trying to get too big, gonna lose your mass. Better take it slow, don't you move too fast. Way out in front, gonna get you past. Trying to be first, gonna end up last. When you feel the beat, no need to retreat. Feature you're the beat, stay light on your feet. Don't know who you'll meet, might hit you a street. From a ball you leave before you reach the peak. Swimming up this creek, take it stroke by stroke. Gets a little cold, try to bend your toe. Feel the water flow, feel a little bold. Better bust the move or you get too old. You put your right foot in, you take your right foot out. You put your right foot in and you shake it all about. Do the hokey pokey, turn yourself around. Do the hokey pokey, go ahead, break it down. You put your left foot in, you take your left foot out. You put your left foot in and you shake it all about. Do the hokey pokey, turn yourself around. Do the hokey pokey, go ahead, break it down. You put your right arm in, you take your right arm out. You put your right arm in and you shake it all about. Do the hokey pokey, turn yourself around. flow. Life is only moving, so you better move. Life is only groovy, so you better groove. Joy is in this moment, check your attitude. Joy is in this moment, no need to be rude. Okay to be crude, hit the rabbit hole. Okay to be loud, sometimes lose control. Open up your world, dance and find your soul. Music runs this world, better know your role. Change a little heart, don't you go all in. Change can make you weak, don't you go all in. Better catch your wind if you wanna win. You're either one of us or you're one of them. You put your right foot in, you take your right foot out. You put your right foot in and you shake it all about. Do the hokey pokey, turn yourself around. Do the hokey pokey, go ahead, break it down. You put your left foot in, you take your left foot out. You put your left foot in and you shake it all about. Do the hokey pokey, turn yourself around. Do the hokey pokey, go ahead, break it down. You put your right arm in, you take your right arm out. You put your right arm in and you shake it all about. Do the hokey pokey, turn yourself around. Do the hokey pokey, go ahead, break it down. You put your left arm in, you take your left arm out. You put your left arm in and you shake it all about. Do the hokey pokey, turn yourself around. Do the hokey pokey, go ahead, break it down.